Well, good morning. Good morning. For those of you who may not know me, I'm Chris Henson, the Interim Director of Schools. I also serve as the district's Chief Financial Officer. The Board of Education has charged me with leading our school district until they hire a permanent new Director of Schools. I want to welcome both attendees here in the boardroom and the viewing audience from our 160-plus schools across Davidson County who are watching this through live broadcast on Metro 3. I want to welcome and recognize our school board members who are in attendance today, Anna Shepard and Dr. Joanne Brannon. Thank you so much for being here. We've gathered everyone together this morning to hear a special address from Commissioner of Education, Dr. Candice McQueen. She's going to speak on the vision for education in Tennessee and specifically wanted to share this message with our teachers as you return to school. Before I invite her to the podium, I want to first say welcome back to our teaching staff. I hope each of you enjoyed your summer break. While today is your official first day back, I know many of you have been working for days and even weeks to organize your classrooms and participate in training sessions and professional development opportunities. I want you to know that we recognize that much of this preparation is done on your own time, unpaid, and is a testament to your dedication to our students and your craft as an educator. I've had the chance to visit with some of you over the past week and look forward to many more school visits in the weeks ahead. I've had the chance to visit, we have high expectations for each of our schools this year. Here in this room with me today are members of our executive leadership team, staff from our leadership and learning department, other district administrators, and some of our teaching colleagues who work in multiple schools across the district. Please know that we recognize the most important work that takes place in our school district happens in your classrooms. The district's leadership is here solely to support you and your work with students. Now, I'd like to introduce Dr. Candice McQueen, who was sworn in as Tennessee's Commissioner of Education on January 17th of this year. Previously, she served as Senior Vice President and Dean of the College of Education at Lipscomb University. She began her career as a classroom teacher, teaching in both public and private elementary and middle schools. She also served as a higher education faculty member and department chair before being named dean in 2008. While at Lipscomb, she served as a member of the university's executive leadership team and oversaw both her college and the 1,300 pre-K through 12th grade students in 3 schools at Lipscomb Academy. Under her leadership, Lipscomb's College of Education and Teacher Preparation Program were consistently highlighted as one of the top teacher training programs in the state of Tennessee for quality and effectiveness based on the Tennessee Report Card on the Effectiveness of Teacher Training Programs, and was most recently pointed out as the 2nd highest ranking program in the nation by the National Council on Teacher Quality. She also founded the Ayers Institute for Teacher Learning and Innovation at Lipscomb, which has a focus on improving professional learning for teachers by focusing on embedded professional development, coaching, and new approaches to leadership training and support. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Commissioner Candice McQueen.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the warm welcome, and certainly it's a joy to be here in Metro Nashville and starting the year with you. I couldn't be more excited to be right here, right now, talking about the vision for education in Tennessee. This is going to be an informal conversation because I want to share with you really multiple parts of our story. And we have a fantastic story in Tennessee, and you have a story in Nashville that's part of our larger story. So I'm going to share with you some moments of celebration. Why should we be celebrating the good work today? Second, I want to talk about the reality, the moment that we're still in, that we have to stay very focused on and diligent, as well as think about what we can do every single day to meet the goals ahead. And finally, I want to give you some updates. I don't like to go anywhere without giving updates on the most asked questions that I get. And so I will share with you some information about standards review process, science standards, social studies standards, and my most popular questions around TNReady. And so I will share a little bit about that at the end. I want to say thank you to Chris Henson and certainly to your entire leadership team. Thank you to Joanne Brannon and Anna Shepard for being here. And I appreciate this opportunity to be with so many of you, several of you that I know well and have worked with in the past. And so it's a bit like coming home here, and so appreciate that. I want to first share some things that you may or may not know about what's happened in Tennessee. First, we have made remarkable progress as a state. You are part of that story. I have an opportunity to go across the state and share what have we done well over the past truly 8 years. The work that we have been doing that has continually progressed and has continually moved more students to proficiency inside different subject areas. First, we are the fastest improving state in the nation on the nation's report card, or NAEP, the National Assessment of Education Progress. We made historical gains 2 years ago. We are the fastest improving in 4th and 8th grade math and English language arts. We will get new results very soon, and we hope that we come back to you in a few months and can share that that progress has continued. We also are the fastest improving state in graduation rate. We now far exceed the national graduation rate, and quite frankly, we are the fastest improving in schools that have our most economically disadvantaged students. And so you can be very proud of that. That was announced a few months ago, and I'm not sure everyone's heard that, but we are moving more students to graduation who come from our most impoverished backgrounds. We've also made progress as a state in that we are continually moving every single year in an upward way in proficiency with all students on all tests. Now, we've had a moment in reading that I'm going to talk about in a moment, but we are making consistent gains on TCAP and have since 2010. You may remember the transition we had to the Tennessee Diploma Project standards. How many of you remember that well? Okay. Then we made a transition to the Common Core standards. How many of you remember that? Okay. Now we are making another transition as we go through a standards review process where we will be looking at, and we currently are in that moment, looking at the standards that we have and making adjustments, rewriting, revising to make sure we have the best standards of any state across the nation. And those standards will remain high. So looking forward in just a few months to share with you the results of our standards review process in both math and English language arts. So we've made remarkable progress as a state. In fact, we have moved in ACT. It's been slight, but over the past 5 years, we do have a slight upward trend, and we've moved as a state to an average of a 19.3. Now, you may know, a couple of months ago, we put out statewide results for 2015 TCAP. And I wanted to give you a brief snapshot of those results and then talk a bit about the results in terms of what you did in Metro Nashville. So in particular, you can see on this graph that in grades 3 through 8, students continued to make gains in math and science. We had a very slight decrease in reading language arts. In particular, we had third through 6th grade had slight decreases, and 7th and 8th grade had a slight uptick. And so overall, it was a decrease across 3 through 8. But you can see the remarkable progress we continue to make in math and science. As a state, we also continue to make large gains in math across the board. This represents Algebra 1 and Algebra 2, and I'm particularly excited to say we have almost 55% of our students proficient or advanced in Algebra 2. I know several years ago hearing our students can't do that, and we've proven them wrong across our state. We also had very nice increases across all 3 of our Englishes, English 1, English 2, and English 3. And you'll notice we now have over 40% of our students proficient in English 3. And so as a state, we've made great gains in our high school subject areas. Same story in science, both biology and chemistry had gains. Now, I want to show you somewhere else where we had gains that I think this particular district can be proud of because of who you serve and who you represent as our state. We had consistent and substantial gains in proficiency across 2 of our subgroups. These are 2 subgroups that we pay very close attention to, as well as the federal government pays close attention. And our Black, Hispanic, Native American students showed gains. And so we're beginning to close the gap. And this is actually the 2nd year in a row where we are seeing some gap closure. We also had a similar story with our economically disadvantaged students. where the gap is beginning to close for those two groups. We're not where we need to be, but we have made progress the last couple years. So how does Metro Nashville play into this story? Well, those of you who represent high school or work with high school students, you can be particularly proud because high school across the state had a great story, but Metro Nashville had great progress inside their high school subject areas. In particular, the percentage of MNPS students who reach proficient or advanced increased for every end of course exam. All right, give yourselves a hand for that. You can also say, I actually love to say this, Metro made larger gains than the state in certain areas. And so I did want to point that out. The gains made by Metro Nashville roughly doubled the statewide numbers in English 3, Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Chemistry. So very proud of the work that you've done. And by the way, I know that doesn't start in high school. That starts with fantastic elementary and middle school students who are building the foundations that move students to proficiency in high school. Since 2009-2010, Metro Nashville has seen continued progress in moving more students to proficient and advanced levels. I actually really like this chart. You can see Algebra 1, English 1, and Biology 1. Look at the percentage point increases inside all three of those subject areas. So another great story here in Metro Nashville. The percentage of students reaching proficiency or advanced in Algebra 2 has increased 23 percentage points since the exam was introduced in 2011-12. I love to follow Algebra 2 because it tells a story in our state. And by the way, not all states require all students to take Algebra 2. And we are showing that we take all students' proficiency in math seriously, and we're pushing them to what post-secondary requires. Post-secondary says we want all students to have Algebra 2. That's going to help them be successful, and we've taken that seriously in Tennessee. Since 2009-10, MNPS has also seen continued progress with some of the 3-8 areas, particularly in math and science. And quite frankly, the gaps in MNPS are smaller than those of our subgroup gaps statewide for 15 of the 16 measures that have been reported. So your story mirrors the state story in many ways, and you've also proven us lacking in some ways. And so I appreciate the efforts where you have moved past even what the statewide averages are. So this is your story, and I love what's in red. Almost 19,000 more students are proficient or advanced on TCAP and EOC exams since 2010. I think that's a great story that you can be proud of. I want you to start the year knowing that the work that you're doing is paying off. Stay focused on what you have in front of you and consistently do the next right thing right. Do it really well and do what you know in your expertise based on our standards and based on the assessment is the next right thing to do. And we will continue this great story, not only across Tennessee, but in Metro Nashville. Now, you may say that was the positive part of the presentation. There's more positive, but I want to continue talking about the reality moment that we're in. We have made great progress as a state, and Metro Nashville has made great progress. But we continue to have a world around us that's changing. You sense it. If you are getting your students, as I did when I worked in higher ed, ready to go directly out into a career, directly out into the job market, you know how the job market continues to change and how expectations continue to change. I remember working in higher ed and thinking, when I was training teachers, how much more we needed to do to get our teachers ready for what they would experience. And you know that to be true in this room. We have to do the same thing for all industry, for all workplace opportunities. Students need more different, more effective ways to actually meet what the workplace requires. And so we have to consistently be thinking about that in K-12 and higher ed. So we also know that what students could do with the high school diploma several years ago is not the same as what they can do now. And I want to make sure everyone in this room understands that moment that we're in, where the gap in salary continues to widen if you are not doing any kind of post-secondary work after you graduate from high school. So in Nashville, you've continued to improve in your graduation rate. We've done the same as a state. But graduation rate is not where we have to stop. We have to move more students to post-secondary, more students to a credential, and we have to make sure that credential actually matches the workplace needs that are in the field. So here's our reality. We still have, as a state, less than half of the third grade students and less than half of the eighth grade students proficient in reading. Now, this is going to be a high priority for us over the next several years. I know it is in Metro Nashville. I've had the opportunity to work with many of you, Tammy Lipsey and others. So I know reading is important in this district, and you take it seriously. We want to work with you to continue to make sure that reading is targeted, that it starts very early. Foundational reading has to be ingrained so that by the end of third grade, all students are reading on grade level, so they can meet the needs that they will experience in middle school and high school. And certainly that will continue on in post-secondary. We have to continue thinking about writing. All communication skills are important, and they start very, very early. By the way, what happens between birth to age 4? 80% of the brain's architecture is actually created by age 4. That doesn't mean they can't stop learning or they can't start learning. It means that the brain function between 0 and 4 is critical. And so our work with child care centers, with pre-K programs, and with parents to ensure that they are creating the best foundations for reading even before school starts will be important to us as a department. And we'll be working with other departments in state government to ensure that foundational literacy skills are happening in all programs even before they start to school. We know that this will be critical to our success. Also, we know that in fall of 2013, and new numbers are about to come out, we had about 64% of first-time freshmen in Tennessee community colleges having to take a remedial course. Now, what does that mean? That means they are taking a course because they were not prepared for the post-secondary work they were entering, and they're taking it while they're paying out of pocket for it. That's really what that means. They're paying for it and there is no credit. They also can be behind because what happens when you take these courses, typically you can't take the next one or the next one when you're taking remedial coursework. And so we have a problem in that there is still a gap between what our expectations are upon graduation and what the expectations are upon entry into post-secondary. And Tennessee still ranks in the bottom half of all states on the nation's report card. Now, you may say, why does that matter? Well, let me tell you why that matters. Businesses who are making decisions about coming to Tennessee and to support the economic development in our state and to support jobs for our workers, they want to know if there's an educated workforce inside our state. And one of the measures they look at is, well, how do you do compared to other states? And NAEP is one of the ways you can measure how are we doing with our workforce compared to other states. Folks have said to me, well, if you're in the bottom half, that's because you're in the South. And that's a Southern issue. Well, there are several Southern states in the bottom half, but there are several Southern states that are not. So this isn't a Southern issue. We need to be in the top half to show we have an educated workforce so we can continue to bring in jobs for the economic prosperity of our state. So let me show you this graph because I think it illustrates part of our problem in reading. If you can see this, you'll see the red line. The red line represents math, and you're going to see from 2011 to 2015, that line is going where? It's going up. What's happening to the reading line, which is blue? It's going down. We had a moment, and you can see this in 2013, where it looks like it was steady. 2014 and 2015, we had a dip. And I want to tell you that that dip is one that we're studying very closely. What happened? You know, what could that be attributed to? Were there certain things on the TCAP that our students weren't prepared for? How can we do an analysis of what we know in front of us with our data? And the data is giving us some interesting pieces of information that we'll be sharing broadly in the fall around what did we learn about our students who took the TCAP. Now remember, we're transitioning to a new test. And so that's going to be important for a moment for us to actually see where were we weak related to TCAP while we continue to talk about what are we going to do to meet the high expectations of TNReady. I think this chart may actually show it a little bit better. If you look at the bars that are in the middle, you'll see in 3 through 8 reading and language arts, we did not see proficiency levels, we did not see students move among the proficiency levels like we did in math and science. You can see in both of those, students who were below basic were moving to basic, basic to proficient, and proficient to advanced. What's happening in reading and language arts? Staying stagnant. Whichever proficiency level you were in for the past 5 years is essentially the proficiency level you've stayed. We haven't seen a lot of that movement back and forth. That's what is telling us there's a pattern. There's a pattern that we are going to have to get our heads around. What do we continually see inside our test questions and in our preparation that's lacking? Where are our students struggling? What are the content components? What are the skill areas that we need to make sure that we're doing better as a state? And I don't know how much you've looked into this in Metro Nashville, but I would encourage you to look very specifically at your questions to see if you see some trends. And again, we'll be sharing some of our trends very soon. We also have a reality check here, and you saw this on the other graph. We are not closing achievement gaps in the state with our EL students and our students with disabilities. I think this graph shows it very clearly. Gap closure is not happening. In fact, it's widened. This is a reality check for me because these are the students that all of us in this room, and I know many of you represent folks who work with our students with disability and our English language learners. This is where we're going to make or break the future of Tennessee. I believe that. These are workers. These are people we need to have in a job helping with the economic development of our state. If we have over 55% of our students from an economically disadvantaged background, we're going to need to make sure that all students in all of our subgroups are performing at a proficient level or above. And to do that, we've got to take these two groups very, very seriously. Now, one, in English language learners, we are going to be hiring someone at the state level who will be working directly with other folks that already work at the state related to ELL. We need a statewide strategy that supports Metro Nashville Public Schools. And so our work will be to support you in your work, to learn from you in your work, and certainly to work together to see gap closure over the next few years. We believe there are some strategies that we could be talking about statewide that would help what you're doing, as well as other districts who in particular have growing populations of English language learners and have the support needs that I know you also have. And so we look forward to working with you. I also want to share this because it makes a valid point in why the move to push more students to post-secondary is so critical to our future. It's critical to our students. We had a group of students back in 2007. This is the 2007 cohort of high school freshmen, and we've looked at the same data for our 2008 cohort of freshmen. And you may say, well, why are you looking that far back? Because we want to follow them for multiple years to see what are they doing. What do they do after they graduate? What do they do after they go to post-secondary? We had around 73,000 students in that particular cohort. You can see how many graduated on time. We had about 22,000 here in the middle that graduated on time, and they went from high school right into the workplace. This number, though, represents about 10,500 or so who did not graduate on time. Now, I say on time because there are around 5,000 or so of those who did go on and graduate, meaning they got their GED or some kind of high school equivalency. But they did it multiple years past an on-time graduation. So 10,500 or so that didn't graduate, around 5,000 of those went on and got a GED. Then we had these 22,000 students who graduated and right into the workplace. Now, I share that number because of the 22,000 who went directly into the workplace, they did not get a credential, they didn't get another diploma, they didn't get another degree, they didn't go on to some other post-secondary program. If they went directly into the workplace based on our own labor data, they are making an average of $9,030 a year. Now, the 2008 cohort was $9,050 a year, so the number trends the same. You take out folks who have a full-time job out of that. So again, most of these are part-time jobs. Take out the folks who have a full-time job, they're making somewhere between $16,000 and $18,000 a year. So it's low wage, whether they're part-time or they're full-time. So what that tells me is if a student is not going on and getting a credential of some kind, and I'm saying credential because this could be a technical certificate, this could be a 2-year degree, associate's degree, this could be a 4-year degree. If they're not doing any of that, then they are destined to make a wage that cannot support themselves, a family, or be a contributing, giving back member of the community. I want someone to be in the community and give back. This is going to be very challenging for this person. So we know it's important to move more of our students to credentials, diplomas, and degrees. But that story doesn't end, because we had a good number that went on to post-secondary. And maybe this is the number that bothers me somewhat the most, although both of these are not good stories. We had around 40,000 students that enrolled in post-secondary. 58% were still enrolled in year 1. So what does that mean? 42% were not enrolled after year 1. So of the fairly good sized number that went on to post-secondary, we have some that are not completing. In fact, a good number that are not completing. Now you may be wondering, so what's the story? Why didn't they complete? Now you could guess, but I'm going to tell you there's probably 2 primary reasons that we see. One, they were not prepared. Okay, so they're discouraged. They had to take remedial coursework, they got discouraged, or they weren't prepared for the rigorous coursework that would be in front of them. 2, they had some financial barrier, was the second reason. So the cultural pull or financial barrier tends to be that second reason. So this is why we believe Tennessee Promise is going to help us with that second barrier. Right? We want all students to move to post-secondary and not have the financial piece as the barrier. But this should point back to us to say, if the finances are not the barrier, we need to remove the other barrier, which is, can you confidently complete the work that's in front of you? Can you do what you're being asked to do? And that's the work we have in front of us in K-12 to make sure they're prepared for the post-secondary world. So this is our new vision in education in Tennessee. We're taking the great success that you've been part of and building on it as a foundation. We're thinking about the changing world we have around us and what the workplace actually requires, what post-secondary requires. And we're looking at the opportunity we have in front of us with TN Promise. And our new vision is around success after graduation. Now you may sit here and say, well, wait a minute, I've been doing that. My whole vision in the work that I do is around setting up students for success after graduation. And I hope that is the case. I want to make sure we're all talking that language. This is not about checking off boxes and getting them to walk across the stage, grab their diploma, and say, good luck. It's to get the diploma and have set them up for something that will actually be a career for them, something they can be proud of to support a family and their communities around them. This is what we want as a state, and I believe that's what you want inside this room. And so our work has to be around ensuring that we are setting up our students for that type of success. We believe these 3 goals will help us get there. 1, we believe that we need to continue to be the fastest improving state in the nation for a variety of reasons. It's not only moving more students to proficiency and competence and confidence, but it's also helping with our own economic development as a state. We also know that we have to move more students to at least a 21 on their ACT. Why is that? Because a 21 on the ACT is a marker of college and career readiness. It also allows them to do what? Get money, a Hope Scholarship, to help them pursue whatever dream they have in front of them around post-secondary. And finally, we need to have more students going on to post-secondary. You've heard the governor's goal around Drive to 55. By 2025, 55% of all new jobs will require some type of post-secondary. So we need to ensure that more students have post-secondary credentials to meet the workplace needs. We will be working to achieve these goals by utilizing 5 priorities. The first is early foundations. The second, support educators. The third, continuing on our mantra of all means all. All students must be successful. Fourth, empowering districts to partner with us to do the work. And finally, we want to make sure high school continues to help students with a very seamless, positive transition to post-secondary. You will see a draft of a strategic plan from us in September. That particular draft will have these items built out with metrics that we'll be following, as well as what we're following on the three foundational components of our work: high standards, aligned assessment, and an evaluation and accountability system that supports that work. Those three will remain very focused foundational pieces of our work while we're continuing to think about the next stage. I look forward to sharing these with you because here in Metro Nashville, you will help inform us on some of this work. I know some of the work you're already doing to build quality pre-K programs. I know the work that you're doing to build quality literacy components across the district. And I know the work you're doing to help make sure all of our students that are English language learners be successful. And we believe some of that will help us inform the work for the state. Now, I want to share some updates with you because I do get these questions quite frequently, and these may be questions you have on your mind. So I'll share these with you, and certainly if there are others that I can address independently, you can email us, and we would be happy to do that. First, we're in a standards review process. I know most of you in this room know this. In fact, many of you may have already participated with us in the review process. I always love to show this picture because it looks very complicated, right? This represents the standards review process. So what we have done today is we have had a public comment period on a website where we posted all of the math and English language arts standards. Folks had an opportunity to give feedback on that. That closed in the spring, late spring, and then we had an opportunity from about late spring till now where we have teams of teachers representing the different grade level spans and math and ELA work on drafting standards in math and ELA based, one, on their own expertise, two, based on the public comments that were received, and three, based on the work that they're doing collectively to actually push us to higher expectations. I want you to know we received around 131,000 comments, and these teams of teachers have looked through all 131,000 comments. They got large notebooks that they carry around with them, and they have gone through all of those comments to see what could they incorporate inside the standards as they are rewriting them. The folks who gave feedback, you may remember if you got on the website, you had to either say, keep, review, or remove. If you put any of those, you actually had to give commentary around why would you keep, review, or remove. And so that's the feedback that the teachers have been looking at. I wanted to share with you this review timeline because it's important because there's another piece in the review process that you may or may not have heard, but some folks missed it. The General Assembly passed a standards recommendation committee. That's a group that will actually recommend these standards to the state board. And so the teacher advisory groups that are working right now will come to conclusion on their work. They will then recommend to the standards recommendation committee. This group has 10 members. The 10 members are 4 appointed by the governor, 3 appointed by the Speaker of the House, and 3 appointed by the Lieutenant Governor. And so those 10 members will then review what has been drafted, and they'll do multiple meetings. They actually have their first meeting here in about a week or 2 weeks, and I believe they'll all be announced this week, where they will begin to look at what the teams have done to date. So they will be part of the process, then they'll recommend to the state board. The first reading of these standards will be in January. So the state board will get what has been recommended, first reading in January, second reading in April. So why is that good news for you? As teachers, as educators, you will know what the standards look like going into the summer, and then we will think about our training and alignment beginning in the summer throughout next year. And then the first time you will have a fully aligned test with the new standards will be, anybody know? 2016-17. No, I said that wrong. 2017-18, all right, for the record, 2017-18. So 2016-17 is when you'll actually be doing training. You'll get to know the standards, but the full transition will happen in 2017-18. So how many more years do you have with the current standards while we're in this process? 2. You have this year and next year. We will have the new standards approved by the end of this school year. You will go into the summer and the next year training on those standards, aligning all of your documents to those standards, beginning your formative assessment alignment, thinking about the materials that you use, and 2017-18 will be your first year with the new math and ELA standards. So I also get the question, should I be using SPIs this year for math and ELA? What is the answer? No. So you are fully using the current standards that we have in place. Science standards. So there is a draft of science standards that have been written by Tennessee teachers. This has been ongoing for a year. Teachers writing the new science standards, and they will actually be placed on a public review website this month. And so you will see those very soon. You will get announcements from us, and you will have the opportunity to get on the website and do exactly what you did for math and ELA. You'll be able to post your comments and give feedback to the teams who wrote the standards. Now, let me talk to you about the alignment period for the standards. The public review process will extend into the fall, and then we will have another round of review in the spring for this final round. We'll get initial feedback and then a final round, and then that will go to the state board. The state board will actually begin looking at this in August and October of 2016. And so we're staggering the science standards so you don't have a year where you have all of these new. So your first time to see the new science standards in place where you will be tested on those standards will be 2018-19. Because that's also the first year you can have the aligned textbook based on the textbook adoption cycle. All right, so 2017-18, what happens? New math and ELA standards. What happens in 2018-19? New science standards. And so you will have training happening leading up to both of those. Social studies standards. Now, we adopted new social studies standards back in 2013. They were implemented this past year. Most of you were involved in the field testing of the social studies standards, and we have just reviewed those field test items over the last few weeks. What we have learned from them is that we need to produce now more practice materials and blueprints for you. And so those will be produced and actually given to you this month, actually within a week or so. You will have the blueprints on what's going to be tested when, how's it going to look on a part 1 and a part 2, what materials should focus your work for social studies. We also know that over the summer we had an opportunity to actually review some of the assessment items to make sure what we put on the operational test best matches the standards and helps focus what we know students need to know in social studies. So you will see a more focused operational test, and you will get more input around what should your basically your teaching look like between now and part 1 and part 2 of the social studies test. We also got enough feedback that we will be pushing the social studies standards through a review earlier than a 6-year cycle. Right now we're on a 6-year cycle for standards review, but because of the feedback we received, the state board has decided that we will move that cycle up, and that's to be determined, but we will let you know when we will go through that review period. The General Assembly passed in the spring a review cycle, a review process, I'll say it that way, for the 4 content areas: math, English language arts, science, and social studies. And so we will be following what you saw with math and ELA for science and social studies going forward. And so you'll hear more about the process of looking at the social studies standards again. You should teach the social studies standards as you have now for next year, and you will get more guidance with blueprints on how that will play out and how you should focus your work. All right, TNReady, and this is the last item I'll share with you. TNReady is the new and improved TCAP for math and ELA, and you'll see social studies will be pushed through the same process that we're moving through with TNReady. Well, you'll have a part 1 and a part 2. It's sort of the umbrella. It's under the umbrella of TCAP. So when you hear the EOC tests are sort of under that umbrella of TCAP as well. TNReady, you should think math and ELA, and quite frankly, social studies will be under that umbrella as well. Why have we moved to TNReady? If you were being asked that by someone in the media, or by a parent, or by a student, why are we changing tests? I would be curious to know what you would say. But the reality is that we have a current test, a current TCAP test, that does not actually measure and give us feedback on the full breadth of what students need to be able to know and do as they transition into post-secondary. So we need better, more complete test items to give us better information about problem-solving skills, critical thinking, and performance skills. So you're going to see new test items, different types of test items than what you have seen on TCAP. Quite frankly, though, some of the test items will look like TCAP test items. Someone will says to me, well, you're getting rid of all multiple choice. No. There are still multiple choice items, but there are additional types of items that actually help us see the full breadth of what the standard intended and to give us better information about preparation for post-secondary. So that's the reason why we're moving to TNReady. I get this question a lot. So will TNReady increase the amount of time we spend on testing? The answer is it's going to be very comparable, very similar. So the amount of time we've spent on TCAP will be very similar to the amount of time we'll have for TNReady. You're going to see that in several of them. I'm going to quickly go to this because I want to show you this. You'll see this in our school guide to being TNReady. This is posted on our website. You can see charts of exact times for every single test in 3-8 and certainly in high school. And you will see the comparison to what does it look like for TNReady and what did it look like for TCAP this past year. And all those, there's going to be slight variances. If you add them all up, it's going to be in the exact same window of time. So you're going to have a very similar amount of time on TNReady that you had on the TCAP, even though we're transitioning to a more rigorous and in-depth test. If you have not seen the school guide to being TNReady, I would go to it right now. It's really helpful. It gives you details around what this looks like, what the test questions will be like, and it gives you guidance in how you should be thinking about readiness for the school year. We also have a parent guide, and the parent guide is one I would use freely with all of the folks that you serve, and we will also be providing you with the PowerPoint that you can use at open houses or other parent engagement opportunities that you have, so you can personalize it and share what TNReady looks like with them. I want to go back to this. I'm going to put everybody on the spot, if that's okay, Chris. How many of you have logged into Micah? All right, we get presents for these 5 people. Okay. So it's a small number. That is what we're experiencing statewide. So I'm here to say to you and to the entire state, we need to be logging into Micah so you can actually see what the test platform and test questions look like. I realize it's the first day back, but I need you to log in so you can begin seeing the actual rigor that's inherent inside these test questions. When we looked at it, we had around 15 or 16% of teachers statewide that had logged in since May when you got the login information. I know that's bad to measure it during the summer, but we're going to be monitoring to see how many of you are logging into it. I have logged in several times and have taken the test questions and have given feedback, and I would love for you to do the same thing so we can make sure that we have the best possible platform experience and testing experience when students come together for this year. All right, finally, our results. So you will not get TNReady results like you got with TCAP over the summer. So next year will be the first year we give TNReady. The results will have to go through standard setting because it's the first time we've ever given this test. That happens when educators, I want to make sure you understand this is educator work. Educators get together and they actually determine the scores that signify when a student performs at a certain level. So what score would determine basic, below basic, proficient, or advanced? Educators look at the results and do something called standard setting. The state board then approves that standard setting, and then we actually run the results for you. You will not get those results until the fall. Now, going forward, after this first year, you will get it in a very timely fashion. But year one, the results will be delayed. I also want to go on record saying that we expect proficiency to drop in year one of a new test. That has happened in Tennessee in the past, and we would expect that to happen again this year. I hope you prove me wrong, but I know that's the expectation. That does not mean growth differs, but it does mean that proficiency as a state can drop. And so we're preparing folks for what that looks like, but we also know that we as a state have looked at ensuring that we are communicating that broadly, not only to educators but to parents. And so as we move into the results of the new test, we know we are setting a new stage for the work going forward. So I'll say in closing that we have an opportunity this year to reset the conversation. And I want to ask you to help me in that. We have so much to celebrate as a state, and you have much to celebrate as a district, and I'm proud to be in Metro Nashville today. But we have to reset the conversation that what's important is about our students performing after they get their diploma and leave you. That's what this is about. Can they get a job? Can they get a career? Can they perform in a way that you would be proud? When my students left Lipscomb University, I loved that they had the brand of Lipscomb University on them because I knew the work that we had done with them. I want your students to go out into the world and say, I am Metro Nashville Public Schools. I'm Maplewood. I'm Stratford. And be very proud of that, and you too, because that brand pushed them to performance after graduation. It helped them access a job. It helped them access a career. And it gave them both the competence and the confidence to move forward well after they tell you bye. That's what our work is about. It's not about a number. Okay. I hear that a lot. That number means something, though. It helps us measure whether they're moving or not. But what it's really about is, have you given them the skills? Have you given them the confidence? Have you, quite frankly, given them the soft skills and the emotional intelligence to be successful wherever they choose to go? You offer them choice, and you give them this opportunity for success. So I encourage you this year to stay focused on that. If you ever don't know what to do, put the next step forward and do the next right thing right. And do it because it's right for kids. We're all in this together, and the state wants to support you in your work. We don't want to be adversarial. And so every single day, I'll be thinking about you and the work that you do, and I'll be thinking about the success that will be set up for our students. Thank you for the time that I had today. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Commissioner McQueen. We're truly honored that you took the time today to speak with our teaching staff. The information you provided will be incredibly helpful as we move forward into the new school year and prepare for the first year of TNReady. To our school staff who are watching, we have a busy week ahead. Over 86,000 students will be here on Wednesday, whether we're ready or not. So let's be ready. If there's anything you need from our district, please ask. As I said earlier, our job is to support you and your work. I hope each of you has a great start to the school year. Thank you for being here, and thank you for watching.